Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, welcome back to the Wicked Gamer and Collector. So in today's video we are going to do this ultimate tutorial for modding your Arcade1up cabinet. There are a lot of tutorials out there, but I just want to make my personal tutorial because after my Pandora Games 3D video I got a lot of questions and even some emails. So that pushed me just for doing this video, especially for you. This is more like an ultimate tutorial. Here I'm going to show you some different ways how you can modify your arcade cabinet. There are many different ways to do this. The two things I'm going to do is the Raspberry Pi and the Pandora box, or Pandora Games, Pandora Box 3D, whatever. There are different versions, but Pandora box. And with the Pandora box I'm going to show you how you need to assemble it in your cabinet and what you're going to need. Alright, so I want to point out, in the description box you'll find all the parts for the builds that you're going to need. And also I'm going to do a naughty skipping, because yeah, if you skip here in this video of the Wicked Gamer Collector, you're pretty damn naughty. So the naughty skipping is going to be included so you can search for the information that you're going to need. For example, the monitor or the speakers, doesn't matter. Going to do a naughty skipping, so if you're naughty, use the skipping, be naughty, and yeah, search the information. I hope this video helped you out, and yeah, let's start with the video. And do my best to explain everything. Alright, let's go. Right, so the first thing we're going to talk about is the PCB board that we're going to need for connecting the monitor, because there is no connection like HDMI or VGA on your monitor of the Arcade1up. So this is the first thing you're going to need, of course, link in the description. You need to remove this protection cap. There is nothing very special, 2 screws. Alright, when you're turning around, I recommend putting both mainboards side by side. You can just basically pull it out and put it in the right position in the other mainboard. That's it. That's the only thing you need to do. Alright, and it's very important that you're going to unscrew this one, and you can just basically use the same screw and put it back in the monitor. Alright, so this is the only thing that you need to do. I use the little screws to put it in position. A quick overview, so you can see how you can assemble it. Very nice, very easily, and put everything in position. Again, you can use double-sided tape. I'm not a big fan of it, to be honest. Alright, so the monitor is ready. The next step is the buttons. So what we're going to do is replace all the buttons and the joysticks. So the first thing we're going to need to do is unscrew the Parkers, and when you're done with this task, you can lift off the plastic cover that grants you access to the parts. So the only thing you need to do is just basically pull everything out. Be very gentle with the buttons that you don't damage the artwork. What I'm just going to do from the PCB board in the middle, I'm going to try to pull out all of the cables, and that's the only thing that I'm going to do. It can be a little bit tricky simply because they used a lot of glue in these versions, so sometimes it's a freaking nightmare to get the cables out and unscrew the joysticks. Alright, so let's talk about the kit that I'm using in this video, and of course what you can buy beside this kit. So there are basically 2 versions. We're having the light up version and the version without the light up. It's a little bit personal taste what you really want, so that is something you need to decide for yourself. Alright, so first let's talk about the Raspberry Pi and buttons. I'm going to use the full kit light up. So that means that they are going to get with 2 sets of buttons, 2 joysticks, and it comes with encoder boards, everything we're going to need for everything to work on the Raspberry Pi. But here it comes. If you want to use this set, that is also possible. You want to use a set like this without, for example, the light up. You want to use this on a Pandora box. Yeah, there's a little bit different story. You don't need the encoder boards, and the reason why is very simple. With the Pandora box it works a little bit differently. There are some mainboards that supports, let's say, the USB joysticks, or some don't. So this is the reason that I want to show you the way how you need to connect it like this. We are going to use the original cable tree or harness. Keep in mind that you order it with your Pandora box family. If you don't do this, you will have a problem, because the encoder boards most of the time are pretty useless to the main boards like this. So alright, so what you're going to need to do, you're going to order the cable harness, and I'm going to show you how you configure it. Because we are going to use this EDA connection, it's so simple to connect. It's even way easier than the Raspberry Pi, to be honest. So that is going to show you how does it work with setting it up. Alright, so here we have the cable tree itself. So this thing just basically sticks it in the Pandora box itself very easily. But what you can see over here, we're having player 1 and 2. And what you're going to need to do, basically when you're having a button, you're having two cables that you need to connect, because you need to make a connection between the two cables. So that's it. You grab a button, you connect the two wires, and that's it. You're having connection with your main board. Alright, so here in quick EO testing with the Pandora box 3D. You can find these in the setting menu, and what you're going to do when connecting a button, you want to search which one you're going to need. Just go to the EO tester in your settings. The same for Pandora box 6 or whatsoever, all the same. But if you want to use a Raspberry Pi, connect your buttons, you're going to need a full set with encoders, because the encoders is the communication between the buttons and the Raspberry Pi. But there is something you really need to consider. If you want to buy the light up buttons, it's very cool. The finishing touch, I love it. But with the Raspberry Pi, it's way more convenient to build it in, simply because it's just plug and play. With the Pandora box, this is a different story. And the reason why is very simple. With the Pandora box, we are going to connect it straight on the EDA connection. And this is just basic for the input of the buttons. And the LED up function does need an extra power. So you're going to use a little bit of soldering skills, and you're going to do a lot of extra work if you want to get it working on the Pandora box. What I just did is using this encoder board purely for the power for the LEDs, and it was a lot of soldering work. Alright, in this part we are going to talk about the sound. So there are basically two ways you can do this. The first way is just basically use the original speaker that comes with the Arcade1up. It's not bad at all, don't get me wrong. And the second one, what we can do is or use an amplifier in combination with some extra big speakers. Right, so let's start with the Pandora box. So if you want to hook up an original Arcade1up speaker, that's the most cheapest way you can do it. Very simple, and this is what's so cool about it. You're having this original cable that comes with the Pandora box cable harness, and what you're going to do is a little bit of soldering needed. You're going to solder the cable that you're going to get with it with the original Arcade1up speaker. That's it. You're going to plug and play this straightly on the mainboard over here with this connection. I can even use the original if I want to. And that's it. You have sound. Easy as that. If you want to use an amplifier, you can of course use the jack cable. Here at the back we can find it. You plug it in the mainboard and you plug it in your amplifier, and that's it. You give the amplifier some sound. Alright, so let's talk about the Raspberry Pi if you want to use some sound, because with the Raspberry Pi you shall need to buy an amplifier. So if you want to, let's say, use the original Arcade1up speaker like with the Pandora box, it's not going to need a big amplifier like this. A smaller one will do the job too. But I'm going to use some external speakers. I just want to do it a little bit overkill. Just want to experience how does it sound compared with the original speaker. So I'm going to use these UVCs, are very cheap to buy by the way. So that can be an option for you. Right, so here we have a small amplifier that I shown you before. There are different versions, it depends a little bit what you want with it. So at the back we're having the audio jack cable that goes through the Raspberry Pi, and this is how we can send out the sound signal to the speakers. And the speakers can be, let's say, the one you can see at the back or just the one in the original arcade. Alright, so a quick talk about the power. As you can see, this version doesn't have the extra speakers. So what I basically did is very simple. So here you can see we having two power cords, one for the PCB board and one for the Pandora box itself. So what I basically did is very simple. We are going to solder that one together, and what you're going to have is that you're having one input and two outputs. So what you can see over here, this is the original cable that came with the Arcade1up. I put them in the original position, and at the end we find the power supply. Alright, so if it comes to the power supply, I just wanted to give you a quick look. I am using this old one. It's a version from Philips. I think it's from a monitor, but this is a very good version. And this one is a 5 amp compared with the original one that was only basically in 3 amp. So you need to have a heavier power supply. if you're thinking buying a Pandora box to build it in your Arcade1up. Alright, so a lot of different questions, but the main question I'm always getting is, what kind of box do I need to buy? Everybody's forgetting to ask yourself first, what kind of game do you want to play? For example, if you want to play arcade games, just basic arcade games, you have basically a couple of options. So first of all, we have the Pandora Box 5. It's a very cheap board nowadays, but is limited to the games that are programmed on it or for it, because you need to add them with a USB stick. The Pandora Box says this is the one that has a lot of options. For example, we can now add games. The Pandora Box 9 and 9S Plus and all the other versions, yeah, are just basically rip-offs from the Pandora Box 5. So basically you have the Pandora Box 5 and you have the Pandora Box number 6. But the Pandora Box 6 is the best one, I'm guessing, if you want to play two-dimensional games or arcade games. And again, you can remove and add them if you want to. Also, the Pandora Box 6 has the option to make your favorite list. You can not only add games, remove games, but you can search them. That is something that is very unique in the Pandora boxes, because not every mainboard has a search function. But the Pandora Box series, or 5, 6, 9 and 9D, doesn't have a save function, and I did notice some screen tearing with some games, so there's something you really need to consider. But the best one for this is the Pandora Box 6 in my opinion. If you want to have a little bit extra, you want to have more options with adding games, I think the Pandora 3D, the Pandora Key 7, the Pandora Treasure 3D and the Pandora Box 7S, and there are quite some other names, have these options. So it doesn't even matter what kind of color and what kind of name, but if it have this menu, you have the option to add Sega Dreamcast, or better said, Sega Naomi, the arcade version. We're having, let's see, PSP, PlayStation 1 and N64, but I really want to point out that all of these extra options you have compared with the Pandora Box 5, 6 and all the other versions is that it doesn't have a very good support. Some games run pretty decent, but a lot of games run pretty bad. So keep that in mind. So if it isn't a good option, if you find this board for very cheap or you get it for free, yes, why not? But I would not recommend it, to be honest. It's flawed in many ways. And then we have the last option nowadays when making this video, is the Pandora Game 3D. This one also comes in different names, but just focus on the Pandora Game 3D because, for example, the 9H looks similar, but it is not compared with this one. So the Pandora Game 3D, keep that in mind. So, but what I really like about this mainboard, it got a very nice fancy menu. The cooling element, let's start with this, is a little bit better than all the models because in the copper version, I must say if you attach it to the casing, it can be very noisy. But let's take a close look at the menu itself. Pandora Game 3D, I love this menu, it looks so nice. We're having all categorized, reset and search, we're having a wide range support of systems. The only thing, and that is something you need to keep in mind, two-dimensional games like, let's say, Super NES, Mega Drive, NES, PC Engine, you cannot add these. You can only add, so far I know, PSP and N64 and Sega Dreamcast. They are the only thing you can add. Maybe you can add PlayStation 1 somehow, but I didn't made a video how to add games, but I couldn't figure it out, to be honest. It's very messy, it's very hard to do. Also, this thing has a quick load and quick save, and this is something that doesn't work with every system, but for the system that it works good, and we have this little extra neat feature, and feature that a lot of the other mainboard doesn't have. So what I really like about building a Pandora box inside Arcade1up with the original speaker, it is not really messy. It looks very neat and very clean this way. And simply because we don't have a lot of these extra things that we're going to need to assemble. We don't need, let's say, a power brick inside the Arcade1up. It's just basically one power supply from the outside and everything looks very clean and nice. I'm still going to clean it up, but what you can see over here, we're going to need an extra power brick simply because we have different voltages. We're having 5 volt for the Raspberry Pi, 12 volt for the power supply and the screen. So in my opinion, this is one of the ways, but it is very messy with Raspberry Pi. Right, so let's talk about the Raspberry Pi. Let's move these and let's talk about and focus on the Raspberry Pi 3. When making this video, the Raspberry Pi 4 is out, but not very compatible with emulators. So that is not a good option at the moment, but maybe in the future it will be a little bit better, or better said, it will be way better than the Pandora box and the Raspberry Pi. number 3. But nevertheless, the Raspberry Pi, you need to keep in mind that this is a very common thing to use, but it is not very easy because you need to have some knowledge how to set it all up. So keep that in mind. We're having the TV game box. This is an Orange Pi based system from our friends from China. This is what we call ready to go. It comes in with some controllers if you want to, but it is just basically complete package. And I mean with this that, for example, it comes with a case, and even with model number 2, this is more convenient to building it in your Arcade1up. It comes in this very nice case that you can just basically attach or just use some parkers and attach it in your Arcade1up cabinet. So the TV game box, it's less powerful than the Raspberry Pi, so keep that in mind, so it will limit you in emulating some games. Here we have the Odoo XU4, and I really want to mention this thing simply because this thing is quite powerful. The same story like the Raspberry Pi, you need to have some knowledge how to set it up, but what I understand, this thing runs on an octa-core. And this thing has way more potential if it comes to emulating PSP, Sega Dreamcast and some, let's say, later systems. So if you want to go all out, it's a little bit different when installing it, but just want to mention it here in the video. Alright, so let's do a quick side by side with the Raspberry Pi and the Pandora box. So both are just great options, but there are some pros and cons that we're going to talk about. So if you still don't know what to build in your cabinet. So the Pandora box, it's just basically plug and play. There are a lot of great options. For example, we even have the option to use an VGA without any converter. So you can just plug it in your old monitor if you want to. So also it's very cool that we're having the option to use an external speaker, a small external speaker on the mainboard itself without an amplifier. Right, so that brings us to the Raspberry Pi. The Raspberry Pi, it has a lot of potential if it comes to emulation. We're having more freedom, we can do a lot of things that we can do with the Pandora box, but you need to have some knowledge. You need to, let's say, have some knowledge about how you need to program it, how you need to even install the controllers, etc, etc. So Raspberry Pi, it's not very plug and play, in my opinion, and you need to have some knowledge. So personally, if you want to have an easy mode, the Pandora box is a very great way to do this. And again, what's also very important, you need more power supplies with the Raspberry Pi. So if you're searching a certain product, I will leave a link in the description so you can find the part you're going to need for this rebuilding or modding your Arcade1up. I hope this video helped you out with all of your questions. I tried to cover all the common questions I got through email and comments. But if you still have a question, you can always leave it in a comment. Me or one of my Wicked family members will try to help you out. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and become one of the Wicked family. And like this video if you want to, and hit the little bell, because this means I will see you in the next video.